The resume is probably the single most important thing because that's where you can show that you're what I call a rock star.
Thank you so much, Paul, for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. You were one of the best MBA admissions consultants, according to Points and Quants. And thank you so much for your time, really just kind of providing your insights to all the audience that we have.
You're very welcome.
Would you please tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm from the Midwest of the U.S., basically an English major and from the University of Chicago, and earned a master's from Johns Hopkins University. And I guess initially I was thinking in terms of a teaching career or writing or something like that. And in fact, I did do a lot of writing and editing right after my master's degree. And one of the things I wrote was business histories. And I discovered that in business stories, there's actually a human element. In fact, quite a lot of it. It's actually can be, as a narrative, it can be quite interesting. And that was a kind of a nice segue into the admissions consulting work, where you're taking people who are trying to get business degrees, but you're trying to tell not only a business professional story. And
so how long have you been doing this? And according to your LinkedIn profile, you've been the president and the founder of the company for almost 11 years now.
That's right. Yeah, I left the company that I started in the business with. I was with them from 1997 to about 2010. And then I started my own company, which was not called Admitify at the time. It was just Paul Bodine Consulting or something like that. And then I started so it was basically me. I was a solo consultant. And then I would say within the past 5, 6, 7 years, I have started to work with a team. I think I had a book published called Great Applications for Business School, which, the word bestseller is thrown around a lot, and it's not Oprah Winfrey, but it's sold reasonably well. It gave me a reputation. So I had more clients than I could work with. So I basically,
Gotcha.
I brought a team on board. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So, how many clients so far have you dealt with? And can you tell me a little bit about the team as a whole, how many people you have, or if it's okay with you?
Sure. I totaled it up in preparation for this interview, and it's been over 1,000 paying consultant,
wow.
Paying clients over the years, and obviously quite a few more leads. I offer a free 30-minute consultation with leads. So, and our team is now, it consists of 9 freelance consultants. One of them specializes in medical school applicants. The rest are basically business school applicants, and they are MBAs from most of the top schools, Harvard, Wharton, Chicago, Columbia, NYU Stern, etc. In addition to the MBAs, though, we also have a nice niche in, I'll call it storytelling, because we have several people, a former journalist, a film producer, several people who have direct exposure to storytelling through visual media. And storytelling is really sort of the core of what we do. So that's been very helpful.
Yeah.
And of course, the schools are trending more toward asking for videos from applicants. So.
Video. As a side note, I did actually create I think 2 videos on my first year when I was applying for, I think it was Stern and then Austin, and I was like, why are they asking this? But yeah, no, it makes total sense.
The answer is probably that to be honest, that the emergence of admissions consultants has made the schools feel like the process can be gamed. That written essays are not necessarily as authentic as they could be. So I think the authenticity is all about how the consultant handles the process. So I mean, authenticity is something we aim for, and I think we're successful at it. But I think the videos were the school's efforts to say, okay, let's talk to the actual person face to
Gotcha.
face. But
I might ask you this question later on, but I kind of want to know like how you guys balance between authenticity and then just being really a good candidate. But we can talk about it later on, and like during the conversation. Um, so I've heard about MBA admissions consultants, but I don't really know what are the work you do or what are the services you provide. Can you maybe share a little bit about that? Like, is it just like starting from like, there are so many aspects of MBA application, like resume, essay, your GPA, like everything. So I'm kind of wondering, like, do you guys also help with those, or is it like, limited to, such things? I was kind of curious on that.
we help with everything except test prep, in the sense that we don't have an in-house test prep team, but we do have a partnership with Magoosh, which is a very highly rated and very successful in terms of the increase in GMAT score, average increase in GMAT score. They are very near the top. And so we can refer our clients to that company, to Magoosh. But everything else we do, and we do in-house. So the primary focus for us is still the essays. So I would say, and that, I would say multiple iterations on the essays. We start with a questionnaire, which is really trying to get at the client's full story, not just their achievements, but their backstory, life challenges. We're really trying to figure out what differentiates them from other applicants, and how do we help them tell that story in their essays. So that starts with a questionnaire, and then multiple phone calls to identify the differentiators. And then we often give them like an academic style outline that they use to write their first draft. And then we just iterate back and forth as long as it takes. Our flat fee services has no limit on an iteration. So I would say the essays are first. After that is probably letters of recommendation. And we work, I'm a member of the Association of Independent Graduate Admissions Consultants. And so we tell all of our clients, the schools do not want you writing your letters, which is obvious. But you'd be surprised how many recommenders are telling applicants to write their own letters. So we work with the recommender to develop, or even sometimes just to give feedback or answer questions on their letters of recommendation. We do interview prep. We do editing and proofreading of the data section of the application, personal, academic, employer activities. We do the resume. If they get waitlisted, we help them with the waitlist process. We do a social media review.
Media review?
Yeah, so checking out their LinkedIn in case there's something indiscreet, or, the other thing that we do is, this is actually in the early part of the process, we help with strategizing their entire application. In other words, what schools should they be targeting?
Yes.
What are their weaknesses? What do they need to work on? That's a huge part of what we do up front. I call that strategy. And so that process runs throughout the entire time that we work together, revisiting, when they start to get their interview invitations, we get a sense of whether they're aiming too high, and then we suggest other schools and things like that. But it's really, and when they get admitted, we help them negotiate their financial aid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain art to that.
Yes.
And some people, they'll ask us, well, Paul, is there anything I can do to show the schools that I'm interested? So we help them strategize the class visits, what should be their highest priority in terms of learning about schools, things like that. And you actually mentioned networking in your list of questions.
Yes.
We do strongly recommend that they network, and we do will ask some of our former alumni, if you will, whether they're willing to connect with that client. And sometimes they will, and sometimes they won't. But that's a way of helping them build their network.
So the reason I asked about networking and just about everything was because someone. So like I think I told you this, but like I'm from South Korea and I moved to the U.S. like 3 years ago for my MBA, and being solo back in Korea, you don't really know there is this networking aspect because that's not something that we're used to
I
back
see.
home, and like no, coming to the US and just like going through all these processes and getting a job here and working here, and just like you kind of realize the networking piece is actually super super important. So like how do you help out with the networking, and like when you say like suggest clients do networking, do you mean like networking with the alums or the admissions officers, or like how does that work?
It's a great question. I would say the highest value networking you can do is with an admissions officer if you can get FaceTime, which is not especially in in COVID, it's
Sure.
harder to do that. But and you don't want to ever try to get FaceTime with a admissions person in a way that's overly aggressive. Or
Gotcha.
elbowing other candidates out of the way. I mean, there's sort of there's a way, it's a right way to network with admissions people. And so the MBA tours or the on-campus visits, the online events, I'd say the admissions people are the number one target, if you will, for networking. After that, I would say don't limit yourself. Talk to current students, talk to former students and alumni, talk to as many as you can. I mean, I think there's value in showing the schools that your awareness of the school is not just from their website, that it's
Gotcha.
personal, it's been personalized. So, I mean, I would not limit yourself. And I've even suggested to clients that, let's say they don't have a personal network at their target schools. Why not use LinkedIn
Sure.
and,
Reach out to folks.
reach out to people. And, maybe most of those will come up empty, but often that may lead to a conversation that teaches you a lot about the school. So
That's yeah, it's I mean, like I would probably, like if I know what I know, like if I knew what I know now back 3 years ago, I would probably use a very different strategy. I don't think I actually had a strategy. I was just like applying. So I had some questions around. So like when I thought about like MBA admissions consultant, I thought it was like you would prep all the like essay, for example. I thought you would be like you or someone else in your team would be writing the essays and like maybe also like helping out with the the recommendation, meaning writing the recommendation for them plus the resume as well. So that is not really the case.
that is not the case. Yeah, we do not write essays. Occasionally, when I started in the business, there were more people who said, "Will you write our essay?" Because it was a less established industry, and so
Sure.
when we would say we don't do that. But I get less of that now. I think people have learned that most reputable admissions consultants will not write your essay. I mean, as I mentioned, we will structure. We start with a questionnaire. So in some sense, the client's words are what we're working with to begin with, because we have a questionnaire, and then we do multiple strategy calls where I call it fishing. I'm just asking question after question, trying to tell me about that story. Why did you do that? You're looking for those differentiators, those life experiences that are unusual. And then, I might give them a structure for how you might tell that set of stories. And then they would write the draft from that. So the writing, and the same with the letters of recommendation, I strongly encourage the recommender to write the letter themselves. And
Of course.
and I think they get the message. A lot of them will still push it back to the applicant, and that's a situation you want to avoid, because no applicant, no matter how egotistical, can talk about themselves with quite the authenticity that
Mm-hmm.
an enthusiastic recommender can. So no, I mean, I would say it's very it's macro and micro editing that we do,
Mm-hmm.
but we do not write.
Gotcha.
So
Based on your data or insight, like throughout the whole year working as an MBA admissions consultant, what has the most impact on getting admitted to, like, applicants target schools? For example, do you think it's the essays? Do you think it's the GMAT or GPA, resume, like, their school name or their employer name, or, just like those kind of famous companies, like, for example, like Apple, Google, or Amazon, or
Amazon,
Microsoft,
yeah.
those companies, if you have those on your resume, does it really,
Absolutely.
so just want to know, like, what's, because no one, I mean, a few of them will, but like no one will have like a perfect package, if so just kind of want to know, like, what impacts the most there.
That's the $1 million question. I actually honestly don't think there is a single thing,
Mhm.
the number one thing. I mean, the branding is important, and because I think the admissions departments are basically risk averse, they're willing to take a chance on people who are just truly remarkable.
Uh-huh.
But the branding, the undergraduate branding, the graduate branding, and the employer sends a strong signal to them that you've been vetted. The applicant's been vetted by selective organizations, and I think that obviously it's human nature to that minimizes their own risk. So I do think the branding's important, but I certainly do not think it's number one. I
Uh-huh.
would say, if I had to name anything, the GMAT is, of course, or I won't say the GMAT, I'll say the GMAT and the GRE is very, very important. I would probably say that the resume, if you allow that as a single data point, that the resume is probably the single most important thing, because that's where you can show that you're what I call a rock star, that your career pace is atypical, that you're getting tons of responsibility. Your job title says it, the bullets say it. So I would say that if that resume is strong enough, then even a lowish test score won't hold you back. And I get, every year I work with people who, they have, not only do they have sub-median test scores, but they have test scores that are in the lower middle 80%.
Sure.
So you would think this person is not going to make it. But if they are strong enough if their resume and career pace is strong enough, and in addition to that, they are diverse enough, and I mean diversity with a small d, so just not necessarily cultural or ethnic or something, but
Sure.
that if that combination is powerful enough, then the test score won't necessarily hold you back. So I'm not sure I answered your question. There's not a single thing. It's not
Yeah.
like it's unfortunately. So I mean, Harvard famously said many years ago, when we see a candidate, we ask ourselves, are they strong enough? And by that they meant resume, test scores, the traditional things.
Yeah.
And when we see a strong applicant, we ask, are they interesting enough? So in other words, yes, they've got all the credentials, but is there anything here that's really distinctive? So there's kind of like two things.
Sure. So it's interesting because you mentioned strong applicants. What does strong applicant mean for you or for your team?
That's a great question. At the end of the day, I will say leadership is, when I see a candidate who has remarkable leadership for their age, and I don't just mean professional, I mean, extracurricular, and, from high school, they were clearly leading things. They've started companies. Sometimes they've sold companies. I feel like at the end of the day, that really turns heads, more than,
Gotcha.
more than some significant social impact, or even a really incredibly diverse profile. I think if you're someone who's clearly done unusual amount of leadership, that's what strong is to me.
Gotcha.